Hey everyone, how you doing today? Again, we're speaking with him, Lane, and Dana. We're talking about landlord stuff. So how you doing this morning?
I'm great. Thanks, Michael.
This is a good question. When you're taking an application from a tenant, and it happens to me probably monthly. What do you do with someone that has no credit versus somebody that has bad credit? So how do you look at those things? Because one is not equal to the other. Are there exceptions? What do you think when you get one of those, either bad or no credits?
Yeah, I would take no credit over bad credit any day. And the reason for that is no credit just means they've probably been paying everything with cash. They
Yep.
don't have any debt there,
Mhm.
or they might just be building up their credit because they were a student and they're graduating, and that's at no fault to them that they're building it up.
Mhm.
Bad credit is definitely a different story, and the devil's in the details.
Right.
Just seeing that score is not something that will tell you whether or not you should run to them. You need to really look into the details. And what I mean by that is if you have bad credit and you look into the details, and it's because there's a trade line called Nordstrom, and they've spent a lot at Nordstrom and have an overdue balance on it. That's just negligence of, hey, they don't have their financial setup for success.
Mhm.
If you see only one trade line open for it and it's a medical bill and their kid had cancer, that's a completely different story. That's
Absolutely.
one where, okay, they actually might be great tenants because they're going to stay in your property to help build their credit, pay off that
Yeah.
unforeseen event. And that might be a case where you do take the tenants. Then I would
Yeah,
always say,
let me just say there,
go for it.
medical credit, medical dings or whatever you call it, negative marks are one that I often avoid. I mean, if they have quote unquote decent credit and their one big negative is a $50,000 bill at the local hospital for whatever reason, I, I can ignore. I frequently ignore that. But if they have bad medical plus car plus credit, I mean, that sings a very different story. If it's just a medical line, 9 times out of 10, I probably will say yes.
Yeah, and we've had that experience in great tenants, right?
Yeah, of course.
With medical bills. So the devil's in the details. I'd also say data is king here. If you have one tenant who has no credit, and you pull the other one and they have great credit, that's more information and data to tell you, hey, these might be good tenants. And with that, there's always things you can do. If you have a situation where it's no credit or bad credit, you can decide, do you want to have a co-signer or
Mhm,
guarantor? I
mhm.
always recommend a co-signer because they're then on the lease and saying they're responsible, jointly responsible there for all the payments. A guarantor you go after only if you can't get the payments from the tenant.
Mm.
But I always say, you could put a co-signer on there as well, someone with great credit as well. So there's ways to work through things, but again, the devil's in the details there, and you need to look at the details and understand it. It actually, credit reports, when you first start landlording, it's kind of scary. You're like, what are all these numbers on here? You just have to spend, I think, 20 minutes to understand it. And
Yeah.
then you're like, okay, trade line, People's Energy, great, that's a utility company, they owe them $200. Oh,
Yeah.
there's this and that, to really understand what the report means.
Yeah, the thing that I also appreciate is when the tenant tells me what I'm going to see, right? Oh, by the way, I have a
Yeah.
medical, right? When you tell me up front, that's a good sign, right? That they know what's there, because it's surprising how many people don't know. But yeah, that's another thing I like to see is when the tenant fills it out, going, "Hey, here's my $20 for my credit check. Oh, by the way, I owe Kaiser $25,000 or whatever it is."
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, so very cool. Like you, again, no credit. I need to know the story, right? Is it a college grad? Is it a 25-year-old moving out of parents' house, or is it somebody that's just paid cash for a long time, or are they new to the country? I mean, who knows I want the story, right? No credit's not a no, it's a ask more questions.
Yep. Exactly. And there's additional things. The co-signers, like I'd mentioned, there's international, there's companies that work with international students
Mm.
to basically become the insurance for you, the
Oh,
co-signer. And we've seen that to be quite successful where, hey, you don't have credit, you don't know anyone in the US, you just moved here. Great. Here's a company that's basically going to co-sign for you. And they're basically an insurance agency that does this
wow.
for internationals. And they're even better at qualifying because they understand internationally, right? There's no one credit score. Nova Credit's trying to create it, but there's no one credit score across the world. And so these companies that do insurance like this for internationals who come to the US are really good at understanding, okay, I can read that bank statement of that person who just came from India. It looks good.
Mhm.
I can read their past employment information. It looks good. If you gave that to me, I wouldn't be able to read it at all. I would have no idea. And so they can do that for you. So you can definitely leverage something like that.
Very, very cool. That's awesome. And do you happen to know one of those companies' names by chance?
Yeah, I'm actually, now that I said that, I'm going to have to get back to you on the next one because I've actually used one before in the
Okay.
past. And now I'm trying to remember
Well,
which
just
one. It
send
was
me
like
a link
3 or
and
4 years ago.
I'll put it in the description when you send it over.
Cool. Sounds good.
Very cool. Thank you for this. It was a lot of fun conversation. Take care.